steps, promoting patient safety, improving health.
Oh my God.
I brought it today.
What the cat drug is.
It's free.
What's the area we do? Yes.
We're already on bypass.
Okay.
We're about to come off. They get started. Decompensate. Shuts off. Mechanical shut off. So they have to handbrake. Because the protein is already been given, it causes the sparks to fall off. So now we have to bring in a whole system. Mechanical shut off of the circuit itself, hand cranking, and then a complete system change on. So the whole precursor was so that we could get your perspective of what you do during these situations so that we can all identify each disciplinary role during these high crisis moments.
So, one of those common things that we talk about, we have any cardiopulmonary bypass emergency, which is pump shut down for whatever reason. And the other big one is air ambulance. So, I brought a whiteboard so we can write some of these things that this has nothing to do with. So, just real quick, I think we should go through those because when you have an arch embolus or you have an air embolus, a lot of what goes on with just pure pump failure is up to perfusion to fix. So you guys should fix that. But when we have air embolus, we're all doing something. Quickly as we can. So that includes anesthesia, that includes perfusion, certainly everybody can feel it. So I think it would help us if we kind of just ran through really quick what we would do if we had that happen. So let's say we're on bypass, bunch of air in there to your left. What's the first thing we're going to say? First thing. Pump off, stop bypass. And so there's certain things that happen. There's commands that we communicate and there's actions that we take. So pump off and then immediately, so that techs and everyone are aware and then you all are aware. Pump off, pump shuts off. Next thing we're doing is planting lines. Okay. So now presumably there's air inside the heart, and it's probably also, especially if the heart's open, and there's also air inside the airway. So if that's true, then what do we do? Okay. The lines are clamped, they're disconnected, and then a few things are happening. You are ensuring that there's that's happening. Okay. The reason that is happening is because air goes up, obviously. It's in the arch, it has to go up. So it goes up towards what? Towards the heart. Well, that's fine, but it has to come up somewhat. All right. So presumably you have to get the clamp off. You have to put the right pressure. You have to get the clamp off. Right? Let blood just come out of the arch if it's open, or out of the aortotomy, or in the heart, or through a vent. Take out the cannula, ventilate the patient. Presumably, if there's anything that gets back into the aorta that we know at some point when we go back on, we're going to have to, once we at least get some blood from the heart, maybe when we're back on the year, we might be able to get some oxygenated blood. Probably. What else? So
we need to find out where in the circuit air, why there's air, why it connects with the patient, what we need to do to prep.
yeah, so and then if that don't find it, then change the circuit, right? Or maybe get a new pump. I mean, you might not discover it. I mean, that requires some investigation. had this happen before, and then nobody can tell. So many connections, or so many ways that things can happen. You know, some practice is loose, nobody can really figure it out. So you may end up having to roll the pump. So, all right. So we said stop the pump, plant the lines, ventilate, head down. Take out the aortic cannula, maybe massage the aortic root. What else could we do? RCP. RCP, respiratory surface diffusion. So we're going to cannulate the SBC somewhere above the azygous vein. We got a snare above the azygous vein and start infusing like a liter a minute or a liter and a half cold. And then we might run that for 2 or 3 minutes. And then what else? Yep. So we've got to pull a patient, but we got to get back on podcast to do that, right? So here the arch. We've got vents in the heart, obviously we can ventilate. If not, you can fenestrate. You can take a needle, stab the chambers, stab the root, take a knife, stab the aorta, whatever. We can sop up the blood. We just have to get the air out. We're going to reestablish stimulation, go back on bypass. Start cooling the patient, complete the operation. Okay. Maybe leave the patient cool and then do systemic cooling afterwards. And then if you've got capabilities within an hour or two of your facility, what's that? Possible hypercare costs. So I wrote some of those out this morning. So you know, Gail started putting head down already. So stop bypass and say plant the line near the heart. So venting, needle compression or penetration of chambers. Take out the cross clamp, take out the aortic cannula, RCP, massage the aorta near the arch, recannulate near the lines, resume bypass, complete the case, post-op hypothermia. Something else we said in there too. What's that?
Anesthesia can get some drugs, they can get steroids.
What's that? Isopacking probably not going to help that much that soon. You could, like we do for sugar rush, but I don't know if drugs help that much either.
If there's an opportunity, it's slow, we're stagnant, but it's not going to go anywhere anyway. But
Right. That's right. That's what it was. Union compression drug. So, all right. So I mean that's pretty good. I think I left out a couple. I didn't get manual compression. So I didn't write that down. So how long do you have before hypoxia sets in? How long does it take? At normal thermia. Brain injury can start at 4 minutes, right? So 4 to 6. So most of the time we've got about 4 to 6 minutes at normal thermia. But the one thing we have going for us in here, if you look at the calculation for PA2, ventilation equation, it's somewhat of a complex thing, but if you look at it, if you're on 100% O2, at normal FiO2, you might expect your PA2 to be somewhere a little over 100. Okay. If you're on 100% oxygen, this would be as high as 663. That's if you were under ideal conditions at sea level. Okay, you had a normal CO2 that was perfect. Right? It could be that high. But on bypass, our FiO2 is 100%, right? So if we're 100% on bypass, our PaA2 typically could be 300 or 400s, right? You see that? That's very common at 300 or 400 while we're on peritoneal bypass. So we've got, maybe you can extend that out to 8 minutes, okay? This takes every second of 8 minutes. You think, it seems like it's forever, and then you get it done and you think, oh, that wasn't too bad. We got all this done in a few minutes. And then you ask somebody, how long was it since we were last on bypass? It was 12 minutes. And then you're like, okay, did we really have it? So you've got about 4 to 5 minutes under normal thermia. And then you got whatever CO2 you are, which falls at a rate of about 30% per minute. Okay? So if it's 400, it's 600, let's say, and there's no flow. Well, 1 minute later, it's 400. Another minute later, it's 200. Okay, so it falls fast. You have a small cushion, but you don't have much. It buys you about 3 or 4 more minutes. So, anyway, just something to keep in mind as we get through this, what we all have to do. So I'll turn this back around so we can't look at it. So the provision considerations, while they're doing all that at the field, is go over your circuit, see if you can see if there's a crack, like Elena said, reprime your circuit up as quickly as you can. Have to be in communication with the scrub at the field, because if you just line up, people want to do right. So do we want to clean light the model and go from there?
Yes.
Let's say that we find out, let's say we determine there's no air in the circuit, but air did get in. The circuit is now primed and we're fine. Can you trim time, just pulling the aortic cannula out, shove it in the SBC and flow through that, or would you definitely want to use a retrograde?
No, you could do that. Absolutely. The whole body.
You gave it a trim time.
You could absolutely do that. Matter of fact, that would be the fastest way to do it. Yeah. But the problem with it is that you have to have that, you gotta have that open. You can't have any air at all.
Right.
You'd almost have to have it flowing and stick it in. Otherwise, you just confuse from where to retrograde. Right. I mean,
Right.
so that's one of the safer things about having a cannula in, putting another cannula in, being able to de-air it up here. It's very difficult to de-air something as it goes into a structure down in a hole. You know what I mean? But we can de-air a cannula coming back up very easily. So that's something. All right. I'm gonna keep with the model.
Helena. I'm over here. Helena.
Hey, Christine, it's Missy.
Oh, hey, grab Helena.
Yeah. She's here.
I can't see her. Where are you? Oh. Hold on. Okay, Helena.
Yes.
I think it's important to remind them that they can also flood the field. So when you're doing that retrograde up the cerebral, that they could see the bubbles actually coming out of the aorta. And once they know that there's no more bubbles, at that point, they can turn it back around. So I think it's important to touch base on that.
Christine just mentioned too that if you put your whole feeling on heart, then you can see where the bubbles are. The other thing, when we do the training for air osmosis, it's like that we take care of pulling out it's just, I think the question is what your preference is, and then you're gonna have to read it in return. You want to see the first string, so you can do the bubbles top, or do you want to?
Problem is, it's hard to de-air through a cannula because the holes in the arch. That might not be the point. It's probably better.
If you're in group one, if you're in group two, you can step back. If you're in group one, we're gonna pull the pump up. It's Dr. Cook all ready to go.
Where do you want? So I can see all this from here. Do you want me to go over there?
You can go over. They can hear you, right?
Yeah, just walk around and go over. Okay.
I used to just go like take pictures of other people. we make our connections from the bypass circuit to the patient itself. We'll go through the scenario, the startup of the scenario, and we'll work our way through it. I've asked Dr. Cook and Tamisa to explain what they're doing during certain parts since we didn't get to hear their presentation on Monday. So as we're going through, we might take a couple of stops here and there just so Dr. Cook can sit there and say, this is what I'm doing during this part of the situation. And Tamisa can say, this is what I'm doing to help out during this part of the situation. This way, if Tamisa ever needs something that's on the field or in the cupboards and nursing isn't available to help out, we can all work together as a team to get what they need. Sometimes there's more staff refusing to help. Sometimes the anesthesia can jump in and help also. I think it's really important too, because the anesthesia might have to jump in and help down at this realm, like we were talking about on our presentation. So just even watching how we move our backup pump over to the other side and then hand cranking itself and the actually, like as Gail was saying, dumbing it down so that you know what we're actually doing in that respect. So we have two separate groups for both scenarios. So we'll have group one go first with the mechanical failure, and we'll have group two go second for the actual system changeout. So whenever you're ready to hand up the line.
Sorry. Move around and find a good spot.
Oh my God, they're done. Yep. Yeah. It doesn't matter. There's a bag of savings stuff in there. Inside the mannequin.
Yeah, maybe we should probably fill it. Yeah, it's kind of not here. If you could just let's just fill that, because I think with the end it'll be. Yeah. we won't have-
There's actually a connection inside the mannequin where there's one of the-
Oh, heavens no. They're well above my head.
How much?
That's what I said. It's a whole bag of like. It's good. That works too.
It's about a small one.
Are you clamped down? I'm just gonna get back in.
Hey, going on.
I'm gonna see off another.
Hey, mom, my bad. I put on a one. Yeah. Full flow. Something here.
Okay, so we're on bypass. Our patients did great. We're about to come off. Anesthesia's gonna give their first aid. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, we're gonna come off.
Before we come on.
On bypass and, hips off. Now that the pump stops.
So we're on bypass. We're on bypass.
My folks go, gonna switch it up, coming up like that.
What do you need to do?
Never mind.
Implant your venous line accentuating rotation.
I'm gonna switch out my phone.
We're gonna try to hand transfer. Yeah. Yeah. So just always communicate. Like you want to communicate first, but my phone's not pumping. I'm gonna start hand cranking. We need to call for help.
If my phone's not working, I'm gonna switch out the phone. Gonna try to back up and help me.
So with this there, we might have to put it for you, right? Near the end.
Yeah.
Which would change our name.
Where is it? I'm not able to stay up. Yeah. Stay.
We're supporting the blood pressure. And if we have a rhythm when we're small.
So it's done.
Now we don't have a rhythm. So
Just say. Okay, patient's unstable, we gotta get back on. Yeah, hey, Frankie. You need any additional anticoagulation? Not in, if you could. Hey, Frankie.
You guys clamped up there?
You're not. Hang on, you got a big airlock. This is the problem.
Please.
Take it out.
Easy. I got the clamp off.
I mean, it's pretty painful.
Now you're flowing.
Okay, now I'm flowing full flow.
We don't have any pressure to monitor, so just bring on flow.
Know what you were flowing before this happened? Three of them must have known.
4.5, 5 liters. Keep
Hang
on.
on. Pump off. Okay, pump up. You fix this real quick. Fix it over a minute. We have an imperfect model right now.
So good. We want that. So again, we're learning. Because this is gonna be all jacked up first thing, once you try to get back to popping that out. That's the thing to do. We had to estimate up. So you're gonna hear, well, I mean, just initially, we're trying to.
Once you go back on, try to get rid of this. Okay, try and go back up.
Just a slow, steady crank. There you go. Be like a rhythm to it. You want to switch out with me, and then you can just examine the circuit, see if you can find everything. So it doesn't want to call for that. there and get
Can you put it underwater?
355.
I'm calling for another circuit. The pump doesn't work.
We're trying to, yeah.
Chris is bringing another pump in the room.
This is the point where you guys, the field would be like getting ready to
Fill up
connect
and
all
come
this shit out so we can get this pump out of the way.
You can oxygen.
Yeah, we're oxygenating and flowing and the RPMs and flow are okay.
Did you figure out what was wrong with your system? Why did it shut down?
Pump doesn't work.
Did you turn it off and then turn it back on? Sometimes like we just might have a glitch in the system where it just
Yeah, we-
automatically shuts off.
I turned it control off. Yeah, turn it off and turn it back on.
What about the whole pump? The whole pump we did not turn
I
off.
did turn off the whole pump.
Is it plugged into a red outlet?
Yeah, it's plugged in.
Is there anything else? A water leak that's hitting the pump that would cause the circuit break to shut off? Like these are things that you want to also check as you're going through everything.
Yeah, everything else looks good.
So you know that you turn it off and you turn it back on, it's not shutting off. So you're letting your anesthesia surgeon know your circuit's not turning on, we're currently hand cranking, what's anesthesia doing during this time?
Normally they maintain blood pressure with vasopressors.
Perfect. So you're watching your patient's hemodynamic status, you're giving them oxygen, we're trying to get them.
You guys want to have that thing on.
What's the surgeon doing during this time?
Ladies.
Screaming, yelling at everyone.
You need connectors or anything.
And Tamisa and the surgeon are gonna be working together to make sure that everything up in the heart is okay, that there is no air coming down the line while anesthesia is doing their part. Because obviously you're off, you're not hand cranking, you don't have your safety measures that you typically would have when this is functioning, right? You don't have your air detector, your health detector, your leak lamps, all that's turned off because your system's completely shut down.
So our whole goal here now is to get off pump, to get away from mechanical.
Getting on the way.
Whatever it failed, we don't know. So our whole goal is to get the patient back on, the patient being alive on themselves. So, you know, hemodynamic support, ventilation, fixing, completing the operation. We might even be, you know, needing a little bit more extra help. We might even be putting in a bullet pump.
Exactly.
So all of those things to try to, you know, achieve hemodynamic support. We don't need to worry about that.
So you're gonna wanna disconnect everything you can perfusion side. That would be easy to get that pump out so that you can get this new pump in.
So Tamisa will be cut in line.
Tamisa will be, you'll hand up the lines, Tamisa will cut them, and it'll be like anything else, a very seamless procedure, switching circuits over from one to the other.
And also during this time, anesthesia, if you guys like just sounding off the blood pressure or what you see happening right there, it helps. 'Cause we're kind of, we're not looking very often, you know what I mean? Flowing at a good four.
Push it underwater.
RPM, fine, the pressure of the system are all okay. Since all this going on back here, we're probably not staring up at the monitor.
Good point.
And there are different things that we would do depending on where we were at in the procedure. If we were able to just come off bypass, hand crank, fill up the heart and come off, then we would do that. But if there's more operation to do and we need a whole nother circuit, then we have to think about what's our best bet. If we're able to pump the blood in and come off bypass and be done with the case versus bringing in a whole new circuit because he has more operation to do.
You can head up, it's definitely.
Well, you gotta have some good muscles. We don't want a hand crank indefinitely, Dr. Cook, we want a new button. What do you mean? What? We wanna, what do you think, James? Do you wanna just plot the circuit now too, or do you wanna switch the
Just
circuit?
switch it out and we can do the scenario the next round. So you guys, perfusion team, you understand the steps that you have to take when this happens and making sure that you disconnect the right things and walking through a nice mental checklist. What can you do to make this easier so that you don't have all this equipment in here? Remember, there's more people in here. It's not just this. So you want to make sure you disconnect your water lines while you're waiting for backup. They're going to be clamped up at the field probably by this time, and they're going to be figuring out, anesthesia's me figuring out how to keep that patient stable as best as they can. Disconnect your water lines. Get rid of your gas. They're ventilating. Get rid of your gas so that you can get this circuit out of the way to bring the new one in quickly and in a more fashionable sense so that you don't have a big cluster going on. Because you need that boom, right? You want to disconnect and get that patient on as fast as possible.
If we were cross clamp on bypass and the pump went down, we would have to change out the whole circuit, yes. If we're warm, ready to come off bypass and the pump shuts down, and we can hand crank and fill the heart, then we would not have to necessarily change out the complete circuit. Very much where we're at, the procedure determines what our course of action is.
Fencing and, getting started, please, are a bit superfluous. One thing we need is material and perfusion. The other thing that you might not think of that is extremely important is that if we're sitting here and we're perfusing, and that's all good, we don't need to get cardioplegia, all right? Is the field starts filling full blood. And eventually we get to the point where we can't continue the operation. So we're either gonna be dumping a bunch of stuff in cell saver, try to facilitate visualization. But eventually, within 20 minutes, we're gonna have to get paraplegia, right? We're gonna have to vent the heart at some point, but at some point, we gotta mop up the blood, because we can't see. We're gonna be completely underwater in, a matter of 5-10 minutes at most. So, yeah, while the one thing that's most important is that we get, our pure perfusion back, we can't see. So you're gonna have to eventually get suckers.
You want the sucker passed up first. Still on, you guys can switch up the sucker before we switch up.
You want
Like,
to do your lines
I
first.
think
Grab that there.
I think you get back on laptop first. The most important thing.
Because they have wall suction they can use if they need to do that emergently.
we could do another cell saver. We have to, the patient's not gonna,
Your
they'll get
cell
the blood back.
The other issue is that if you guys determine exactly where you're gonna, are you gonna totally decannulate, or are you going to connect the AV loop to the line you got in already?
No, we'll cut here, we'll be feeding it. Yeah.
You guys have all the connectors and stuff that you need.
That's what we gotta get, it's 2 and 3 8
2 3 8 straight.
Connectors, so it's gonna immediately plant out.
We can pretend that things are then, if ever we got.
Do you wanna get the lines up first? Get the new lines up, have them.
Okay, so you guys are ready to change over the pump?
Right, just keep on here ready.
Okay, we're gonna get the lines up.
Get them up and separate.
Yeah, more effort in that circuit. Apparently kind of not.
ACT's been fine.
Dr. Anna, do you guys give, if this were like a true pro, we gave protamine and everything, would you give more heparin too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kevin asked a good question. He was wondering what amounts of the
Do you like the half dish?
I'm a more, like, I would give what your baseline was or what you did initially, because it's always able to be reversed. And the idea is to make sure that we don't swap the pump.
So you mean, if one was the baseline, add another 10 or something like that? That's another 10,000 to do that?
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, we just get the baseline again?
I would get, if there's now a clotting question, if there's a question of anything being clotted, I would give the full day sufferin again, plus 10 in the pump.
Okay, so yes.
But right now, I believe we're still okay. Our ACT is fine.
Not only that, you want to have to determine whether or how high you want to go in the arterial.
Right. We may have to leave that to him.
Our whole circuit's flooded off, let's just say we're off right now, we can't flow it.
Okay, so connect the connectors.
Can't flow it.
You stop flowing?
All
No more
stop.
Three connectors.
Alright, so now we're all fine.
We were all high.
Still ventilated.
Real
They
good.
probably- Right, that's what I was thinking.
Back on.
Back on. You got your gas on? Gas
it's on.
right? We're okay, perfect.
Now we can swap out this pump.
Suckers are on. So another thing to pay attention to when you go back on full flow is that if anesthesia was giving any pressors, you clearly want to watch your status, your hemodynamic status. You don't want to blow the patient up. Something to pay attention to. In that regard, you might have to come out slower than normal, just so you can watch your line pressures.
Are you flowing?
We're flowing 5 through full flow.
All right, let's just go right back into the next scenario. We'll do air electrolysis. How about that? See?
Yeah.
All right. There in the line, shut the pump off.
Okay, pump
Clamp.
off.
Head down. Move the garage and ventilate.
This is a bad day.
Lauren, is there any air in your circuit? Our pump very upstairs.
You have 3 connectors.
Yep, there's 2 right there.
Okay.
Pump's disconnected.
Can you say you have them on the field?
I'll take a 4 lead. 10 minutes. Accumulate SPC. Do these things. Then block our pure feed on the side of the aorta. And then I'll take this feed and put it in the SPC. And then yeah, run it up. Off. We'll pretend we're on RCP, on RC9. Leader and a half to 12 minute of RCP.
So do you want to put some irrigation on the chest, immerse the heart?
Clamp, thank you.
1 liter and a half.
Okay. Float for 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Or until you don't see any more air.
Vents up,
That's up.
So you don't want
keep them laying.
cooling.
Stop for on. Gotta let the air out.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say that's good for 3 minutes.
All right, it's 3 minutes.
Pump off.
Pumps off.
I'll change this from SPC over to here. say that I've done that. Go back on full flow,
Back on full flow,
full patient.
cooling. Full flow, 5 years.
Stop ventilation.
Stopping ventilation.
You can flatten the patient, complete the operation. Make the patient hypothermic, come out of here at 34,
How long do they stay hypothermic then when we go upstairs?
24 to 48 hours.
And then do you do like an EEG up on the floor just to eval right away? Okay,
Because they can see.
okay. Would you do a CT scan or anything along those lines also? No, okay,
You get it as soon as they're stable.
Okay.
One thing you look for is not stroke. You want to see if they got any sepsis.
okay,
They've got air in the brain. The next case, you can get them to hyperbaric oxygen.
okay. So that would be one of the pre-leading up to, okay, hyperbaric. Any
Right.
questions on that?
Well, let's look at that board over there. We wrote those things down. You get through all those things?
Did we do head down? We
Yeah,
did do head down.
Okay, yeah, down.
We did the heart, he changed the cannulas, we removed the clamp off the aorta, she ran our CPs in 3 minutes while he massaged the aorta and teeter to arch. Recannulated the aorta, moved the lines over and re-resumed CPB. After that, we completed the case. We did post-op hypothermia for 24 to 48 hours. After that, you can do EEG continuous to make sure that there is activity. And if we need to, we can go ahead and CT check for that and then send it to hyperbaric chamber if we need to for oxygenation status.
Yeah, we did all.
No.
Let's say, want to go change the surgery out, find that there's clot all the way to the arterial venous. That's what pull the arterial cane, like cut that off, put a new one in. Yeah. For the vector, is there anything you can do as far as like drugs to, like, let's say we're assuming that clot in the patient.
Yeah, at that point, you can totally decannulate, go back on, and I would look for it under TEE. If it's distal peripheral embolism, we could always deal with that later, like a leg or something like that. But if you've got clot that's gone to the brain on bypass, you're done.
Yeah.
So there's very little you can do with that. You'd have to hope for the best and try to de-air the arch with RCP and all like good, but if there's clot in the arch, that's, I mean, I've seen that once before, it's just, you're not getting out of there.
Any other questions?
Well, I was just gonna say that air embolism scenario is what we did in the fall, and it just showed you how important the simulation was, because we just needed 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Through the entire algorithm, and that's based on what we did. You know, previously.
It, you know, it doesn't happen.
No.
It needs to tell you, because we're up here sweating bullets, you know, it's like, it seems like forever, and it ends up being longer than you think. You're like, oh, good, that seemed like a long time. We must have done that in 4 or 5 minutes. And then I always ask, how long were we off? 12 minutes.
Especially a clot on the surface.
Dr. Haig is absolutely right. So we did this back in the fall and it came back to you guys very nicely. Although we never want this to happen in the OR, obviously. It's a good refresher. Glad we covered it again.
Should almost put these checklist up and have it as like a card, you know.
That's a great idea.
For the hypothermia, hyperthermia, you know, there's a checklist thing.
Yeah.
And we have emergency checklists like this around the pump on the wall or something like that.
This nursing could count out,
Yeah,
you know.
make sure we
Read it,
everything.
yeah.
and it'd be good to know.
Right there on the wall, with that, you know, laminate it with a piece of paper, draw that thing up. All right.
All right,
What else?
next group. We're gonna do the exact same thing again. You can leave it on. You're good.
Runner, so we're gonna change out the whole pump again.
We're gonna walk through that scenario that I We're gonna have anesthesia jump in and help this time. All right, so who's in this group? Who's in group 2?
Me,
Group one,
Kelsey,
step back.
Julia, and Helena.
Great. Chris is the moderator. He's gonna walk us through the scenario itself.
All right, so we're gonna go back to the coverage times 3 with Dr. Cook. 2 staff perfusionists on the case. It's near the end of the case. The patient successfully comes off CPB. I'm off right now.
All right,
On 5 minutes. It's somewhat unstable.
they're off.
Perfusion decides to leave the pump primed and ready in case of emergency going back on. Anesthesia started further. Patient subsequently decompensates and the surgeon asks to go back on CPB.
Going back on. Give more heparin.
Hurricane stop.
Give more heparin back on. More maps. How much heparin we need to give? Pumps off. We can't flow back here. We're back. Or we're off. Okay. I'm gonna turn the pump off. Try to come back on. All right. Yeah, my pump's not working. Okay, turn it off. Just come back on. See if that helps. Pressure dropping. Pumps. We're trying to support it. Okay, rebooting. All right.
Mechanical fail, shuts down later. One of the perfusions to emergently start hand cranking.
Okay, pump is not working up there. You can hand crank out. The nurse, please call. The surgeon's doing compressions, cardiac massage, while you guys are doing this. All right, good. Anesthesia can come over and help if needed.
I'm gonna hand
Make sure you're
slow. I might have to have you jump in here, so just watch when I'm there.
Okay. Okay, all right,
Coming up on flow.
we're back. We're on forward flow. Yeah, we're staying, we're at. All right,
I'm coming up on 1,500 RPMs.
we're at 3 liters. Okay, good. Is off?
Yes.
It's off.
Okay. We're doing all right.
Good, we're, okay, how's our map? Okay,
Got blood everywhere.
we're here. We're here with the pump.
Then it's on. We can't turn it then on.
It's emergently starting to go. After several minutes, the perfusion
You
number
cell
switch on.
saver. Cell saver for the day.
They notice that the circuit reservoir is flooded off completely with no forward flow. While hand crank.
Okay.
We are not.
Okay. Yeah, I'm getting high resistance back here.
Change up the pump. We're cranking the line.
Okay, clamp back here.
Circuit, ventilate, on the up inside.
All right, let's clamp back here. Okay. Make sure you're ventilating. Pump the pressure.
Yeah, I'm just gonna move this out of the way.
Move the pump down. We're gonna get the pump down and not wedge with the new one up. All right, I'm just gonna hook the gas up. We're gonna go off the tank. Okay. Got the new circuit up, the lined up. Okay. How's our map? Are we doing okay up there?
We're still at 5758.
Okay, patients doing all right? Okay, we have more heparin going in, another 20,000.
Give us some volume up here.
Are you guys on antidepressants?
Yes, we're on epinephrine, 0.07.
All right, you guys got the pump good, we're on, pump's on.
Okay, I gotta stop CPR to reconnect this. Okay. Stop the CPR.
Throw your E-clamp back on. Oh, you just.
Here,
One from the data.
Right.
Yes.
No, it's not that one. The next. Yeah, that's it. Sorry. I wouldn't touch things. Yeah, that's
This is
it.
half the battle, right? This is something.
This is
I
the goal.
actually-
Okay, you're correct. Right here. Come back on. We'll come up slow. We're giving all kind of gross. Our pressure's doing okay. Okay, we got an ACT. It's good back here. Suckers and vents are up.
Full flow,
Full flow, 4.5 liters.
something like. Yes, it's safe and complete, surgeon has to go back on CPB. Goes up on flow, reestablishing gases. Also reinitiate checklist. The biggest thing, because we use electronic circuit, somebody is gonna have to document paper-wise. Off bypass, on circuit switch.
Which I could ask you to
all
do.
that kind of stuff.
Which I could ask you to do.
Yeah.
Get my times.
Get all that in.
And then you know that you're on your tank, so this would be the time when you know you're on and your hemodynamic is stable, so move your oxygen lines. Get rid of your old circuit, once you everything's good. If you need extra help, this is whenever you would also, again, ask the teacher or anyone else that's available for you to assist you. Sometimes this could happen when you're by yourself, you're at like 2 o'clock in the morning, this is whenever you need the help and assistance that you can get.
Least expected.
Yep.
You're back on bypass and you're happy?
Yes, back on bypass now.
There's hair in the line, pump off.
Up, up.
Happy to be here.
Back here.
Seriously, bad day.
Okay, you like the SPC?
Okay, pump looks good back here. There's no air.
Or if you lose out, blood pressure? Yes. Okay, SPC. Go on RCT.
Now I'm on RCT.
Release blood pressure. Usually that's
How long do you want our CP running for?
4 minutes.
Running for 4 minutes.
That's
Sense up.
What you have to do.
okay.
How long technically?
It's been 4 minutes.
Okay, put in an aortic cannula.
Okay.
Put in another aortic cannula. First things are tied down. Okay, off RCT.
Off RCT.
Go back on.
Going back on.
Full bypass.
Full bypass.
Full phase.
Pulling the patient.
On full flow.
Full flow.
Top ventilation.
ISO's on at 1.
So we were just saying in that scenario, you're really nervous.
Yeah.
So, what temperature do we cool to? Cool to 34. 34? Yeah. But realistically, we're not gonna keep my neck on the bypass. Keep it cool much lower than that. Believe it or not. I'll get a little colder going upstairs. So to be risk fibrillation. So I can pull actively 34 and just leave it there. We'll keep it 34 and pulling like this. Okay, we'll finish the case and then consider
So we get all of it?
Can we quickly, someone from the perfusion side go through the anesthesia on hand cranking and how we have to move the system over? And then Tanisa, can you give us a quick rundown of what you're doing? Thank you. You want to go first?
That's fine. So during all of this, I'm listening to what everyone's doing, mostly like what Dr. Pink is saying.
Hold on 1 second, Mark. Tanisa's gonna go.
So I just want to make sure that I have like all my instrumentation ready to pull lines up, like all my clamps. So like, that's basically it. I need saline, we don't want air in any of the lines, so.
But as you guys can see, it's very easy to hook up the wrong system when you're doing a change out. So it's very important for everyone to pay attention and help Tanisa and Dr. Cook determine during that time. It's very easy to grab the wrong set of lines and make that connection again, or make it to two different systems itself. Is there anything that you need us to help you with during that time to grab? Minus connected.
I mean, just to make sure it's saline, because I have all my instrumentation, just like everything out on my table. But it's mostly like saline connectors, maybe like
Where are those connected?
in the cabinet over there.
So we have.
It's a pre-straight connector.
Do you guys do them at the war so that you can be air if possible?
We don't.
Through the door?
Okay, but we have those up there.
Okay, okay.
So one thing I'd say it's important, if we get in this area, we're hand cranking, and we're gonna go back on pump. And we've got a little bit of time. We've now gotten to the point where, we're stable, but we've got to make a change out. But it's not like we're off bypass making a change out where we're throwing saline and plants everywhere. That's the point we kind of do like a mini timeout and say, okay, how's this gonna go? And a lot of times we'll do that when we've done circuit arrest and we're trying to change out, the situation like the backside of that, board. I actually drew that out one night before case. Okay. And we talked about the case beforehand because I knew that it was going to be a total arch and we were going to do all those measurements. And we're going to come on and off and flow up and flow down. And we're going to do all kinds of things. So I think it's important, like to say, okay, before we change this out, should we get some 3/8 with lure locks on? Okay, we have those. We're both here. All right. How many clamps do we need? We have enough saline. All these things. And then we say, how's this going to go? We say, okay, we're going to come off. I'm going to clamp these. We're going to cut them. We're going to fill and switch them out and just talk it through in 1 minute and then do it. It makes a ton of difference when you do that. Because if she doesn't know what I'm going to do and you guys don't know what I'm going to do, and then I verbalize something and you go, wait, you want to do it that way? And I'm like, oh no, that's a good idea. So if we've got the time, that's when we all need to say stop before we do, just like when we change out ECMO. That's the most common. When we're on bypass, we're trying to go from peripulmonary bypass to ECMO or back and forth. We always verbalize that and say, okay, here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to switch this line to here and this line to here. Right? This is how much we're going to flow. This is what we're going to expect.
Yes, you got. You guys will learn it.
If we get into a situation where it's just more here and she's, and these things are not going to be easy to locate because we never use them, right? So we keep them for the most part out of the way. So this is going to be all. Here's this is rotating apparatus. This crank here will actually lock different steps. Stop the whole thing. This is the actual crank.
Yes.
Right there. That's the drive. Okay. You gotta get this thing rotated over so you can have enough length. Or be there, on the pump side. can't lock it down. Push up against the thing, hold it. You're gonna crank. And then move it out of the way. Clockwise. Wait for her to get it all flipped up. Take that off. You can actually get some RPMs going before she even clamps that thing. It's a triple hit. So you can clamp it off with the pump running. Nothing's gonna happen until she. If she gets a little bit of RPM going. Things that are gonna burn you in this situation, or is it the clamp is still in there? So Lauren will be dealing with that, she'll just pop that thing out. So if you start cranking, you don't see any flow. That's the first thing she's gonna think of is if the clamp is engaged or if the clamp is up there. So check here, and then she'll ask these guys if anything back up there to the clamp. Say no, and then you're just gonna start cranking.
So give us an RPM indicator there.
So you've got a
What could we expect the RPM to be?
I would just go to like 1,700, 15 to 2,000. Just shoot for 2,000. She's still gonna have a flow meter right there. That's what you're looking for.
If you didn't have power and you didn't have flow, what would you crank to?
2,000 RPMs.
Would you crank
Best
to
way
your
to do it.
patient's max?
You did well. That's where anesthesia is gonna come in at the head of the bed. They're gonna be sounding off hemodynamics because of all the pressures that went in there. You could go to 2,000 and your me might go to 150. So you'll start cranking at least 1,500. You'll assess your hemodynamics. And
We can actually see flow rate.
The reason we're flowing so high at 1,500 is because there's no restriction to flow up there. This is afterload dependent. So as afterload increases, your flow is going to decrease. Okay, so you're going to have to crank a little bit harder to actually get flow going. But you can see if you guys look down on that scale, you got a green light right at 2,000. If you want to try it, it's real easy to crank. It's just a steady. Don't try to it's just a steady circle.
The Soren one is like, it only allows you to go one way. But some of the other devices that you may encounter in another hospital, you have to make sure you're going in the right direction. This one does not go backwards, but I've seen it happen where somebody's gone backwards. So this gives you the indicator on the RPM and it doesn't let you go backwards.
During that time, you're going to be looking up here for indication of what you're getting flow, and anesthesia is going to be yelling off hemodynamics and saturation.
We might not have this though, right?
That might
If
be
the
better.
whole thing fails, you're going to have to go all
You're
hemodynamics.
looking at the RPMs on that.
Just get a feel for it. Yep. There you go. You're at 2,000. So we're trying to stay at that pace.
Yeah, so you just push into the, push it. Stabilize it. There you go. It's a nice steady process.
You're flying. Yeah, look at you.
It's easy to do that too. You can blow them out. It's easy to do that because you're gonna be like, oh my God, we got flow.
Adrenaline.
Yeah, your adrenaline's cranking. Very easy.
That was the old Abby with the foot pump. Balloon pumps used to be foot pump.
Yeah, but we just have.
The Abumed was the worst. Prime it up.
Exactly. You just need somebody to assist when you're trying to turn it by yourself.
And your extra pump is in that room.
Right.
It'll be plugged in. This black plug. Plugged into the wall.
The one thing that's important to mention too is there's a difference between total pump failure and battery failure or generator failure. So there are things that we can do back here to preserve energy because we do have a battery on this pump. And there are things that we can do to preserve the battery life until we can get a new pump in or until the generator gets back on. So that's different from total pump failure, where we are trying everything, we reboot the circuit, we cannot get the circuit back on.
Do you guys know some of the things that you would do to conserve your battery? To like turn down your vents, turn
Turn
down
down your pump
suckers,
suckers.
watch cardioplegia, you might not be able to get that, you know, if the battery goes out. There's different things to think about. to try to conserve.
and we see from this flow.
I would say, especially with non-perfusion people like Dr. Cook, one of the things that he'd be looking at, one of the things you guys may be looking at, because Ollie and I had this happen 4 times with an ECMO circuit. So your pump is actually clotting off, not just your oxygenator, but your entire pump. What we look for is if your oxygenator is clotting off, you're going to be looking for a high pre-membrane pressure and a very low post-oxygenator pressure because you're not getting flow through the oxygenator. We had the entire pump clot off. So what's going to happen is you're going to start seeing your pressures, all your pressure very low, and you're not going to be able to flow at all. So it's just something to keep in mind because if it's just one person and they're dealing with it, it's very easy for one perfusionist just to miss stuff. The questions you're going to want to be asking are all of your pressures way down? Is your flow just totally way down? If that's the case, your whole circuit is probably clotting off.
Where do you see your pre and post option?
You don't have
We don't
one
have
on
a
this.
pre-
That's the problem. Is all the pressures in this are post-oxygenated. So all of those that pressure was very low.
So we'll see
Flow
our
rate
flows
very
dropping. We'll see if our flows dropping and our resistance to flow increasing.
We were wondering that because we had read some papers in anticipation of this, and one of them was about pre and post.
Right.
pressures, and I said, I don't know. if
So
we
with
actually-
ECMO, if it's just your oxygenator, your pre-oxygenator pressure will be very high, your post-oxygenator pressure will be very low, and your actual flow rate of the patient will be very low. Okay, that's a clotted off oxygen. We had entire circuits clotting off, so the flow is going to be very low, and all of your pressure is very low because you can't generate any pressure. It's just something like, so that it's not just the perfusionist thinking about it, everybody sort of has it in the back of their mind.
It's important probably to say all those things out loud, so we
You're
really communicate everything,
Just
so
like-
everybody knows where we are.
Those are the first questions you got for one answer. Like, are all of your pressures really low? So we've got no flow, are all of your pressures really low? If we're in an ECMO situation. That's really where you're going to see the pumps clot. Four times. And thank God we had as many people here as we did. There's no way she would have made that. Wasn't me.
Is there anything else you want before I'm zooming? Do you want to, is there anything else you want to do or keep the Zoom going or? Okay.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Cook.
Thank you.
Yes.
Everything.
Thank you, everybody.
Steps: promoting patient safety, improving health.